Good evening, and ghouls and fiends, and welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I am your host, Tez. We are live on twitch.tv/Tezius, Tezzrus. Or you may be catching this on podcast platforms, or potentially YouTube, if I get around to putting things back on YouTube. I did for a little while. I then kind of forgot about it. But maybe I'll get back into doing that. It's just a time thing, really, isn't it? Hey, I hope everyone has had a good couple of weeks. Been watching plenty of horror, or reading, or digesting in whatever medium takes your preference since the last show. Had a lot of fun on the last show talking about hairy scaries, cryptozoology horror, specifically Bigfoot horror. Had fun discussing it, didn't have so much fun watching it. I think that's kind of, I guess, the point with that subgenre. But if you enjoy it, if you get some fun out of the hairy scaries, then more power to you. And hopefully you enjoyed the show. It's been a busy old week, as it always is in the world of Ministry of Horror HQ. I've got a few films watched, so today we don't have a main featured presentation per se, but we do have quite a few reviews coming up a bit later on. One of which I guess is kind of a bit of the main talking point for myself. So, Ministry of Horror has been a passion project that I started. That would have been 2022, wouldn't it? When the Ministry of Slam, as it was known then, was looking to branch out into doing like a network. And I'm, good chums with Lawrence and Lee, who were the hosts at that point of the Ministry of Slam. Excuse me. And they knew that I was a big horror fan, big wrestling fan as well, but even more so, 10 times over a horror fan. And they'd asked me about doing the Ministry of Horror. At that point, the name was basically just an offshoot of Ministry of Slam. That was a weekly show, as we discussed. Did a lot of horror gaming streams as well. Did a lot of midweek watch parties, but time progresses, times change, availability changes, and the show format became a lot easier for me to do on a bi-weekly basis. But the point I'm kind of getting to is that it was very much we'll look at what films have come out, we'll think of ideas for main event discussions. But, it's all just been a little passion project. And then an email dropped in my mailbox last week. I can only think potentially it is from, I want to say, Ministry of Slam listener, or the Wrestling Arena listener, an active Discord member, Rick Moran, potentially passing on my details, as I know he has forwarded me some emails in the past in regards to just news in the releasing world. And I got an email from a company for a review opportunity. And the review opportunity is for one of the films we're going to be reviewing a bit later on. It was pretty cool for me, really, to kind of get a chance to watch a film which has had a fair bit of news around it in the horror world before its general release. Even just, I even got a little bit of a kick out of the mention of, the review embargo is lifted on this date, because I'd always heard about review embargoes when it comes, I suppose, specifically to video games. With video games, you generally find there's a review embargo until a certain point prior to release. Sometimes the review embargo is up to the point of release, which is normally a bit of a worrying sign in the video game world. But no, this is a film that's coming out in, I should have the details readily available. It's a home release in March of this month. Yep, don't have that anywhere available. Lovely. We got a chance to watch Doctor Jekyll ahead of its home media release next month. So that was quite a nice little email to get and an opportunity to watch that film and to talk about it. So we will be doing that a little bit later on. We have also got a few other films to review. A couple of them are brand new. One of them is a couple of years old, but not too old. But it's one that I've been wanting to watch out for a little while. So yeah, in the review section, keep an eye out for those. We'll get there when we get there. Horror gaming hasn't really been much on my radar at the moment. Alan Wake 2 I do still need to jump into and continue, but that will be an as and when. Hasn't really sunk its claws into me. Funnily enough, what has, and it's not really horror related, but it's, gaming world, of course, is Final Fantasy 16. So I'd recently finished Spider-Man 2, PS5, and I thought, okay, I've really enjoyed getting back into the swing of things by getting some kind of semi-regular gaming in, because for quite a long time, like a number of years, I'd sort of just dip in, play 20 minutes or something, dip out. Nothing had really kind of drew my attention similarly since the previous Spider-Man game. Miles Morales didn't really connect with me that much, but like Last of Us, things like that. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I decided, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming out soon. I have got the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I've had for a few years. Never finished it. Got about 20 hours in, save. The save just got lost because I had to restart the Xbox. And when I had to restart it, it didn't save any of my save progress to the cloud or anywhere. And I just thought, I really don't want to redo 20 hours of gameplay. I picked up 16 when it got released, which, hey, Fran, the Can, live in the chat. How's it going? Fran says, is Final Fantasy 16 The Adventures of Clive? It most certainly is. Picked up 16 when it came out. I'd played bits and bobs, but at that point I was kind of struggling to enjoy playing on my PlayStation. So my PlayStation's in the living room. The living room is essentially the dog's room, and bless them, lovely dogs. But I was quite often finding that I wasn't that comfortable gaming in there, because you sit down to game, the dogs are just jumping all over you non-stop. I've since found, just get an armchair and place it directly in front of the TV. They soon leave you alone for the most part. And that's why I'm with Spider-Man. Had a great time playing that. I've played some Baldur's Gate 3. I realise I'm going completely off-piste in regards to horror here. But Final Fantasy 16, I then thought, let's jump back into that. Ooh, I'm about 45% the way through. So I'm really enjoying that. So the long and short of it is, Alan Wake 2 is kind of on the side at the moment, because Final Fantasy 16 has got its claws into me. And I have a feeling that when I do finish it, if I do, I will try and jump back into Final Fantasy 7 Remake, because I do want to get Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, the brand new one that's come out today. But I have told myself, can't purchase that until I finish Final Fantasy VII Remake. And at that point, anyway, the price will have come down even more. So it's a win-win, really. There's no point purchasing it for it to sit on my shelf. Excuse me. So that's kind of where I am gaming-wise. While there's been no gaming streams, it's just been a very busy time. Lots of gym, lots of studying, stuff like that. But I have managed to get some horror films to watch. We will talk about them a bit later on. Now it's time for the horror news. This is the news. Oh, 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 oh.
This is God.
Sorry for the cough, and something's tickling the throat. Hopefully it's nothing bad, because I'm going to a wedding on Saturday. I'm sure it's just I don't know. The joys. So we're talking about the latest in the horror films. This, along with all my news, comes from bloodydisgusting.com. Wrote up by John Squires. These are the new horror films being released this week. It's notable for two recent big screen releases into our homes. One, a horror comedy from the writer of Jennifer's Body, and the other is an Oscar-nominated genre favourite. Interesting. So, first up, Less than 1 month after being released in theatres, the horror comedy Lisa Frankenstein is now available at home. You can own or rent the film on digital starting today. Directed by Zelda Williams and written by Diablo Cody, who is known for Juno and Jennifer's Body, Lisa Frankenstein first dug up someone special in movie theatres nationwide on February 9th. It's been billed by Blood Disgusting as a coming of rage tale. Lisa Frankenstein instead offers a celebration of outcasts and weirdos. Catherine Newton of Freaky and Cole Sprouse of Riverdale and The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody lead the cast for focus features. And the new film is rated PG-13 for bloody images and sexual material. Set in 1989, the film follows an unpopular high schooler who accidentally reanimates a handsome Victorian corpse during a lightning storm and starts to rebuild him into the man of her dreams using the broken tanning bed in her garage. I checked out the trailer for this. Yes, I know. 2 weeks in a row, 2 shows in a row. I've actually watched the trailers before we go live. It's becoming a bit of a habit now. It looks okay. It's giving me the kind of vibes of Warm Bodies, which I never got around to watching. I never got around to watching, and I never really heard much about it. I didn't particularly hear if it was a bad film, didn't particularly hear if it was a really good film. I'm sure it has its fan base, but it's one of those films I'm aware exists. Never watched it. But it has that kind of feel of teen romantic comedy with dark tones and a mild horror element to it. It looks fairly inoffensive. If it's on streaming, I'll give it a watch. I won't go out of my way to watch it. Next up, nominated for 11 Oscars, including Best Motion Picture of the Year, director Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things was also released at home. Won the Oscar for picture 3 times. And here's more about that. Alexa, stop. There we go. Alexa just decided to pipe up. Just realised I said its name again. Candyman. It was released on for digital purchase and rental today. You can expect the Blu-ray to release on March 12th. Emma Stone stars alongside Willem Dafoe for Yorgos Lanthimos, who did The Killing of a Sacred Deer and Dogtooth. A Frankenstein-like tale based on the 1992 novel by Alistair Gray. Rami Youssef, Gerard Carmichael, Christopher Abbott, and Mark Ruffalo also star. So I saw the trailers for this when it was initially released, and I did kind of think, I mean, it looks like quite. Oh my god! Sorry, I need to press the mute button. It's never normally kicking off my Alexa, but twice in a row it's decided to kick off with pings and speech. So I watched the trailers for this and I did kind of think it looks interesting, visually very unique and arresting. Like I dig that. But does it also look, odd for the sake of it? Maybe? I definitely didn't think that anything in the trailer made me think, okay, I've definitely got to watch this. I definitely have to keep an eye out for it. And similar to the last show, where there seemed to be this theme of okay. What a show we're having. Similar to where there was this theme on the show a couple of weeks ago regarding the new films being released having a bit of an Alice in Wonderland running theme. We do seem to have a bit of a Frankenstein, god damn it, Frankenstein's monster-esque theme. So we've had Lisa Frankenstein, Poor Things. Has a Frankenstein-esque theme. The film tells the incredible tale and fantastical evolution of Bella Baxter, a young woman brought back to life by the brilliant and unorthodox scientist Dr. Godwin Baxter. Under Baxter's protection, Bella is eager to learn. Hungry for the worldliness she is lacking, Bella runs off with Duncan Wedderburn, a slick and debauched lawyer, on a whirlwind adventure across the continents. Free from the prejudice of her life, from her time, Bella grows steadfast in her purpose to stand for equality and liberation. Well, there you go. I don't know if the microphone's picking that up. A throwback to the slasher movies of the past, director Thomas Walton's Camp Pleasant Lake was released by Desk Pop Entertainment in select theatres and VOD beginning today. Camp Pleasant Lake follows Rick and Darlene Rutherford, who attempt to breathe life into the eerie remnants of an old campsite, unaware of its dark past. Strange occurrences haunt the area, mirroring the tragedies of the old camp, where 2 decades earlier, a young girl was kidnapped and her parents brutally murdered. Excuse me. Amidst chilling atmospheres and long-forgotten secrets, the couple grapples with a horrifying revelation. They are entwined in the camp's history. And as the shadows of the past collide with the present, the Rutherfords must confront the haunting histories of a sinister crime. The cast of familiar faces includes Jonathan Lipnicki of Jerry Maguire, Bonnie Aarons of The Nun 1 and 2, Andrew Divoff of Wishmaster 1 and 2, Michael Paré, Kelly Lynn Reiter, Robert Lasardo, Maritza Brickisack, and Greg Talley. So there's a couple of names there where you might think, oh, okay, this is going to be quite a big film, you know. Michael Paré has done his fair few features in his time. Jonathan Lipnicki, some people may know from, like I say, Jerry Maguire. I'm sure he was also like Stuart Little, maybe. I don't know. But is a name from a blast from the past type name. There's a few people in this film that you may well be familiar with. Checking the trailer out, though, yeah, there's definitely an idea of the kind of budget that's in the film. Not massively high. Yeah, it looks like there's going to be some promise potentially, but I have my expectations, I guess, kind of fairly low. Just in terms of, I guess, like some of the camera angles. I don't know if you know what I mean, but sometimes when you watch for want of a better term, straight to DVD film compared to a theatrical film, it's probably more prevalent talking about films from like 10 to 20 years ago as opposed to more recent, where a lot of things go straight to releasing, whether they're big budget or not. And you could kind of tell just sometimes from the look of the film or the angles used as to what kind of production it was. And this has that feel where it doesn't, I don't know. I don't want to be too disparaging of it, but you can just tell that maybe the bigger names in this probably have subdued roles and only did like a couple of days shoot. Maybe. I don't know. It could be fun still. Could be interesting, but I can't see it hitting any heights, unfortunately. Fran, in the chat, Poor Things is messed up when you consider it's a baby's mind in an adult body. Oh god, that's a bit disturbing. Not ideal. And the kid in Stuart Little, yes. Yeah, he is now playing, from the looks of this, a killer, potentially. The mask of the killer looks kind of interesting. A little bit different, but not that stand out. Going back to the Frankensteins through point of the new films, inspired by the classic Mary Shelley novel, Frankenstein Legacy is a Victorian-era horror tale about the consequences of Dr. Victor Frankenstein's medical journals falling into the wrong hands. The film's been released today, available on VOD outlets. Paul Dudbridge directed this latest adaptation of the classic novel. Juliet Aubrey, Matt Barber, Philip Martin Brown, Alexandra Afrea, and Michelle Ryan star. England, 1875. A century after Victor Frankenstein's doomed experiment, his journals are traded hands for decades. Frankenstein's secrets do not die with him. As graves are torn up and patients disappear from asylum. Oh, that's written patience as in have some patience as opposed to patience. Anyway, William Browning sets out to find out who stole his father's body and finds horrors close to home as his mother descends into madness. Trailer for this looked very by the numbers. Gotta be honest. Frankenstein is one of those tales where there's a lot of films, adaptations, or reinterpretations, and I just don't have much interest in them. You know, I like the old school Universal classic. I do think Bride of Frankenstein's overrated. I'm just gonna say it. And I do like the Robert De Niro, Kenneth Branagh one. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, something is really tickling my throat tonight. But there's just been so many different versions released over the years that just I have no interest in them, unfortunately. Now, a trailer that does look like it could be pretty intriguing that I watched is next up. Family is an all that it's cracked up to be in Amelia's Children, a supernatural horror film from writer, director, producer Gabriel Abrantes that will be released later this week. Magnet will release the horror movie in theatres and on VOD Friday, March 1st. In Amelia's Children, when Edward's search for his biological family leads him and his girlfriend Riley to a magnificent villa high in the mountains of northern Portugal, he is full of excitement at meeting his long-lost mother and twin brother. Finally, he will discover who he is and where he comes from. But nothing is as it seems, and Edward will soon learn that he is linked to them by a monstrous secret. Freya in the chat says, the trailer for this and the new Pied Piper film look like they're working with fairly low budgets. I've not heard about a new Pied Piper film. To be fair, the Pied Piper is one of those kind of tales where the classic fable itself is quite monstrous. And when you think about it, why hasn't there been, a classic horror take on it in the past? I mean, I'm sure that there's a really bad Rumpelstiltskin film. Actually, I say really bad. I think it was actually really entertaining. The Rumpelstiltskin-esque goblin in it was very Freddy Krueger. Really over the top, actually. Yeah, now that I think about it, I'm sure the Rumpelstiltskin horror film from like the early 90s, I want to say, or very late 80s was actually quite fun. But yeah, I've not seen that. But no, the trailer for this does look quite interesting. It looks like quite a tense thriller. Supernatural horror film is what it says here, but I definitely dug the trailer for that. Amelia's Children, worth checking out. And finally, it's not a horror movie, but don't forget the Netflix Spaceman, an original science fiction drama directed by Johan Renck, debuts this week. Adam Sandler co-stars alongside a spider alien voiced by Paul Dano in Spaceman, which flies into select theatres on February 23rd before arriving on Netflix March 1st. In the upcoming movie, 6 months into a solitary research mission to the edge of the solar system, an astronaut, Jacob, realizes that the marriage he left behind might not be waiting for him when he returns to Earth. Desperate to fix things with his wife, Lenka, Carey Mulligan, he is helped by a mysterious creature from the beginning of time that he finds hiding in the bowels of his ship. Heinous, voiced by Paul Dano, works with Jacob to make sense of what went wrong before it is too late. The film also stars Cornel Nair, Lena Olin, and Isabella Rossellini. It's based on the novel Spaceman of Bohemia. Yeah, it is a giant spider, voiced by Paul Dano. Looks weird. I'm not a big Adam Sandler fan. I liked a couple of his films when I was younger, but for the most part, I do tend to write off films with him in. And I know that he's done like Uncut Gems, which has won a lot of plaudits, but you know, if it's on, I'll watch it. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. Let's have a look next up. So we do have some horror gaming news, kind of adjacent to what I was talking about a bit earlier on in regards to Alan Wake. Remedy acquires all rights to the Control franchise from 505 Games. Written up by Mike Wilson, Bloody Disgusting. Remedy continues to rack up the wins with its properties, though this time it's not an accolade. Fresh off the success of Alan Wake 2 and its sales, Remedy has announced that they've acquired all publishing, distributing, marketing, and other rights to their sci-fi thriller Control from publisher 505 Games. The deal also includes the rights to Control, the upcoming 4-player cooperative multiplayer spin-off Condor, Control 2, and all future Control entries. Per the agreement, all publishing, distribution, marketing, and other rights licensed to 505 Games for Control 2 and Condor revert to Remedy immediately. 505 Games will continue as the publisher of Control until December 31st, 2024. According to the press release, Remedy states that this transaction with 505 Games will enable Remedy to negotiate better deals for current and future Control games as either a self-publisher or establishing a new publishing partner. We can now weigh up the options between self-publishing and a new publishing partner for Condor and Control 2. At the same time, we're in a better negotiating position than before, as Control is an established brand and Alan Wake 2 has been successful. We are confident that these factors combined will enable us to get the right partner, deal structure, and risk-reward profile that benefit Remedy and are the best fit for the Control franchise. So that's interesting. I picked up Control a few years ago, and I think it then came to PlayStation on their package. Because I'd heard, I think it might have been the IGN podcast, which if you listen to like watch parties, you'll have heard, you know, that I'm an on and off listener. I was quite an avid listener for a while, but I haven't listened to the last few. It's very hit and miss these days. And they'd mentioned at the time about how Control's a big game. I think it was probably coming up to some like Game of the Year awards sort of deal. Picked it up. While it plays decent, and the story approach was very, very different and unique, it didn't get its claws into me. Now, that could well be because I was in that kind of stage of gaming for me where nothing was getting its claws into me, and maybe I needed to give more of a concentrated effort, because with some games you do need to sit down for 2-3 hours at a time, you know, at least to begin with, to really kind of get the swing of things, get the story going, get your mojo. Never really happened with me with Control, and I appreciate with Alan Wake 2 that there's the connective tissue. I think Control had some DLC, and one of them had Alan Wake in it. In Alan Wake 2, the janitor from Control does appear. I recognise that, and I thought, oh, that's a nice little connection. But yeah, I don't know if it's one of those games that I've been sleeping on and not really connected with, but I've always heard good things about Control. Fran in the chat said it's called The Piper and has Liz Hurley in it. Oh, Liz Hurley. Let's check it out. Let's go to YouTube. The Piper. Piper official trailer. Let's just mute it. Check this out briefly. I'm just going to skim watch. There's Liz Hurley. She's looking all happy. Massive manor house. Big parade going through the town. She's a teacher. Nothing's going on. Kids suddenly ill. Blood thing. Okay, this looks like quite a similar vibe to one of the films I'm going to be reviewing a bit later on, perchance, in terms of the look of the film. It looks like it's got potential. Although from the looks of the skimmed view of the trailer, the Piper seems to appear as this malevolent being. And I think that's missing a bit of a trick in terms of the Piper is initially this enamorous character who then, when he's scorned, takes that approach. Seems to be kind of foregoing that, potentially. We'll move on now to I Saw the TV Glow. Trailer is now available for A24's new horror movie being called a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. Fresh off the haunting and singularly creepy indie, We're All Going to the World's Fair, Jane Schonenbrunn is back with A24's I Saw the TV Glow, and in theatres on May 3rd. Headed to the South by Southwest Film Festival next month, I Saw the TV Glow first earned rave reviews out of Sundance, and several of them are featured in the film's must-see official trailer. In a world where too many people seem to be following trends and doing what everyone else is doing, Jane Schonenbrunn is undoubtedly a true original. That was clear from We're All Going to the World's Fair, and it's crystal clear watching the trailer for I Saw the TV Glow. Watch the eerily seductive trailer for I Saw the TV Glow down below, which hails A24's latest as a one-of-a-kind masterpiece and one of the most original films of the decade. Justice Smith and Bridget Lundy Payne will lead the cast of the upcoming movie alongside Helena Howard, Danielle Deadweiler, Amber Benson, Ian Foreman, Michael Morana, Connor O'Malley, Emma Portner, and Daniel Trembarella. Trembarelli? In A24's I Saw the TV Glow, Owen is just trying to make it through life in the suburbs when his classmate introduces him to a mysterious TV show, a vision of a supernatural world beneath their own. In the pale glow of the television, Owen's view of reality begins to crack. Lindsay Jordan, musician-director Fred Durst, director, I've seen The Fanatic, it's terrible, Haley Dull's Sloppy Jane, featuring Phoebe Bridgers, and King Women also appear in I Saw the TV Glow. Emma Stone's producing for her Fruit Tree banner. So, I checked the trailer out for this. It definitely does look unique. It definitely looks very A24, and I do enjoy pretty much most A24 outputs that I have seen. As Fran says in the chat, parts of the trailer gave me Candle Cove vibes. Yeah, I very much kind of felt that with the mysterious TV show that was around and seems to have some sort of influence. I feel this looks like a big step up from We're All Going to the World's Fair, which I reviewed on the show when it came out, and I was kind of intrigued to watch it because the artwork for the release looked very unique. Had this kind of old Greg, I don't know if it was old Greg or another character from the Mighty Boosh who has like a mint, like a polo mint covering his eye. It had that kind of appearance, and I found with We're All Going to the World's Fair, there was this unique intrigue to it that ultimately just didn't feel like it went anywhere. Like there's an ambiguity to it that I just kind of felt was, I don't know if, I can't remember if I said this at the time, but it has that kind of feel of trying to go for a David Lynch-esque vibe of ambiguity, but just not nailing it because you're not David Lynch. Don't know if that's unfair or not, but I very much found that I wanted to like that film a lot more than I actually did. Can't remember what I gave it in the score, but it would not have been higher than a 6, I wouldn't have thought. I'm fairly sure I might have given it a 5. But there was promise there. I mean, it was an interesting approach. It kind of was mainly, I guess, found footage, if you want to use that term, or more just made up of webcam shots and self-filming. But this very much looks like there's a lot more going on behind it in terms of the production. I do wonder if it's going to be one of those films where I get to the end of it and go, I don't really know what happened or not what the point necessarily was. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, talked before, I love David Lynch films, or the David Lynch films I've seen. I couldn't really tell you what the general gist is of a number of them, or what is actually occurring in a number of them. I'm just along for the ride, and hey, I'm more than happy to be along for the ride for this. It's definitely got some creepy imagery. one-of-a-kind masterpiece? Who knows? I feel that sometimes those terms get thrown around a lot, and I think that We're All Going to the World's Fair had some high praise initially associated with it, which that may well have affected my wanting to like the film more than I did. But hey, it's an interesting trailer. Check it out online. It's available now. The film will be coming out, as I say, May 3rd in theatres. A few more things to discuss. People may have seen on social media that the first images of Bill Skarsgård as a heavily tattooed Eric Draven for The Crow have started circulating. Bill Skarsgård, as we know, was Pennywise in the It films recently. He's taken over the iconic role of Eric Draven in Lionsgate's new reboot of The Crow, and the first images from the film have been released ahead of an official trailer. Crow reboot will release in theatres on June 7th, 2024, and Variety has shared 3 first-look images this morning that reveal Bill Skarsgård's tattooed take on Eric Draven. Director Rupert Sanders, who did Ghost in the Shell, explains to Variety, I think the beauty of Bill is that he has a disturbing beauty, and as he transforms through his loss, he becomes this thing that even he can't control. It's that famous line, whoever fights monsters must be careful that they don't become one. That look was me in the 90s when we were squat raving in London, mixed with some modern influences like Post Malone and Lil Peep. I don't know. I hope people who are 19 today look at him and go, that guy is us. Lots of things to worry about there. From director Rupert Sanders, Skarsgård leads the cast of The Crow as Eric Draven, with FKA Twigs co-starring. Danny Houston of 30 Days of Night also stars, alongside Laura Byrne, Sami Buhalia, and Jordan Bolger. In the new movie, soulmates Eric Draven and Shelley Webster are brutally murdered when the demons of her dark past catch up with them. Given the chance to save his true love by sacrificing himself, Eric sets out to seek merciless revenge on their killers, traversing the worlds of the living and the dead to put the wrong things right. So, I enjoy the 1994 Crow film that starred Brandon Lee, the late Brandon Lee. Did it connect with me like it did some people? I guess in terms of that kind of cult element, similar to other things, Matrix. Can't think of anything else at the moment, but you know what I mean, where it hits a certain fan base, becomes part of a zeitgeist, and Christ, we took wrestling earlier on. The Sting, the wrestler Sting, not the bass player. His whole appearance is based off of the Crow, the film from the 90s. And I thought The Crow's fine. I think it's a decent film, but it never struck a chord with me like I say other films did growing up. What I do know is it's had a number of sequels that have apparently in terms of quality, go from bad to terrible. The look of the image for this with him as Eric Draven, it doesn't necessarily make me think this is going to be an iconic role in terms of it's going to hit the same as the original did, just because we know that there's been a number of sequels that haven't. They've generally looked quite poor. Fran in the chat says, my problem here is it sounds like She Lives, which kind of negates the tragedy of the original. I think it says in the new movie, it says in the new movie, Eric Draven and Sherry are brutally murdered. So maybe they do both die, which I guess was part of the point for the tragedy. I don't know. We will wait and see when it gets released. I know it's been postponed and recast a number of times. They've really tried to kind of get this film off the ground quite a few times. So hopefully now it does kick things off the right way. But I don't know. When you've had so many sequels, and there was even a TV show. I mean, I think the TV show is meant to be okay. Went for a few seasons, as far as I'm aware, but never saw it. We shall see. Anyway, a couple more bits left. Unnamed Footage Festival 2024. The full lineup has been released for the found footage. Here's the full lineup of found footage premieres with images. So there's an unnamed footage festival. That's the name of it. Return to San Francisco, California next month for the 7th edition of the Found Footage Horror First Person POV and Faux Doc Film Festival. The full lineup has been announced this week. So, following the pre-festival 10th anniversary screening of As Above, So Below, which is very good if you enjoy a good found footage, at the Alamo Drafthouse, UFF has added another night at the Artist's Television Access for a badge holder only sneak peek at a new version of The Outwaters with filmmaker Robbie Banfitch in person. An entirely new viewing experience, Outwaters Detective Audio version pairs the striking visuals with the observations of two investigators reviewing the footage. Okay, now has the Outwaters actually had a UK release yet? Because I remember discussing on the news, similar sort of time to Skinamarink, and I've seen Skinamarink, much for my pains, but I've not seen the Outwaters. Okay, it's available to rent for 99p or to buy for £3. I will rent that at some point. Add that to my watch list so I don't forget. Opening the event on Thursday, 28th of March, with Paul A. Brooks and Sierra Renfro's Hunting for the Hag, an adventurous found footage horror film about three women trekking into the woods of Illinois to capture footage of a legendary creature known as the Hawthorne Hag. This will be followed by the third edition of the UFF Power Hour, Don't Stop Recording 3, Sensory Overload, 60 non-stop clips from television, social media, and in-world camera films contrasting maximalism with liminality, complete with complimentary beer and booze from the UFF sponsors. On the Saturday, there's the world premiere of Horror in the High Desert 3, Firewatch, and Lucky Lou Russian Screen Life, #blue_whale. Yoga influencer horror, Mind, Body, Spirit, and more titles that can be found in their first wave announcement. There's also the world premiere of Tahoe Joe 2, the Nevada Bigfoot Conspiracy. Can already tell what that's going to be like. The first-person cat carrier POV film Nias, the labyrinthine Australian psychological horror Puzzle Box, live TV broadcast gone wrong, Haunted Ulster Live, Kansas Bowling 16mm vintage Mondo film Cuddly Toys, grizzled New Jersey cop chaos magic investigation The Coldness, and more. So, okay, there's quite a lot there. If you like a found footage film and you're in the San Francisco area, check it out. We don't get found footage festivals here in the UK as far as I'm aware. So next up, interesting. So tomorrow we should finally see a trailer for The Strangers Chapter 1. There's a new poster artwork available. So the first installment in a brand new reboot trilogy from Lionsgate and director Rennie Harlin. The Strangers Chapter 1 is coming soon. And we've got new poster art today. Sorry, that's Amazon again, this time with a delivery. Additionally, we've learned that the official trailer for The Strangers Chapter 1 will debut online tomorrow. The new movie, which features a fresh tagline inspired by the original home invasion classic, They Don't Need a Reason, has been dated for theatrical release on May 17th, 2024. Ignore the dog barking. The Strangers Chapter 1 is said to be something of a remake of the original 2008 movie, while its sequels Chapter 2 and 3 will blaze a new path from there. Madeleine Petsch, Froy Gutierrez, Rachel Shenton, Emma Horath from Rings of Power, and Gabe Basso star. Based on the original 2008 cult horror franchise, the project features Petsch, who drives cross-country with her longtime boyfriend to begin a new life in the Pacific Northwest. When their car breaks down in Venus, Oregon, they're forced to spend the night in a secluded Airbnb, where they're terrorized from dusk till dawn by three masked strangers. Rennie Harlin, who did Cliffhanger, Dead Deep Blue Sea, and Die Hard 2, is directed from a script by Alan R. Cohen and Alan Friedland. Lionsgate will distribute worldwide. So, for me, the original Strangers film was a decent one-watch horror. And by that, it's effective enough when I watched it the one time. Did it leave enough mark that I have been in any rush ever again to watch it again? No, and that's not necessary to say couldn't watch it again because this bad thing happened or this bad thing happened. No, nothing like that. It's got a couple of unique scare moments, moments of terror. The ending is quite dark. It's fine. The sequel that came out quite a few years later, and it's a few years gone now. Can't remember the full title for it, but The Strangers to Dead by Daylight or something like that, I want to say, was decent. It kind of flew under the radar. I think it had a good cast. It had Christina Hendricks in it. Had a couple of good kills. But by the end of it, I think it was the typical horror trope where all of the bad guys got killed and maybe there was a bit of a fake out near the end. But this new trilogy kind of took me by surprise. I just didn't think that there was enough interest in that franchise as a whole to warrant not only going back to it, but also kind of, doing this new path. I'll check it out. Rennie Harlin's a good director from memory. Didn't he also do Nightmare on Elm Street 4? Am I making that up? Could be making that up. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, coming to theatres in March. I've still not seen the original, and I say still, I've got no interest in watching it. Looks like shite. Reese Frake Waterfield's Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 promises to be bigger, better, and bloodier than the first film, and has now been provided with a release date. Fathom Events will bring Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 to theatres nationwide beginning March 26th. The catch is playing for only 3 days. Tickets can be purchased online at participating theatre box offices. The official synopsis is: deep within the 100-acre wood, a destructive rage grows as Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Owl, and Tigger find their home and their lives endangered after Christopher Robin revealed their existence. Not wanting to live in the shadows any longer, the group decides to take the fight to the town of Ashdown, home of Christopher Robin, leaving a bloody trail of death and mayhem in their wake. Winnie and his savage friends will show everyone they're deadlier, stronger, and smarter than anyone could have ever imagined, and get their revenge on Christopher Robin once and for all. The cast includes Tallulah Evans, Scott Chambers as Christopher Robin. Scott Chambers. Oh yeah, I do recognise that name. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Ryan Olivia as Winnie the Pooh, and Peter DeSouza Fairy as Young Pooh. Matt Leslie wrote the screenplay for the slasher sequel. We've also been told that the upcoming sequel will crack Jagged Edge's public domain horror universe wide open, teasing upcoming Pinocchio, Bambi, and Peter Pan-based horror movies. Oh, God. So, yeah, I watched the trailer for the first film that came out last year. I mean, it looked terrible. Maybe there's some merit in there. Maybe. Well, not merit, but maybe there's some entertainment in there somewhere deep down. Maybe. I don't know. We shall see. And then finally in the news, Model House. Exclusive trailer. Swimsuit models get slashed in Shout Studios horror movie. You never know who's really following you. That's the premise behind new Shout Studios horror movie Model House, and Bloody Disgusting is exclusively debuting the trailer today. The film is being billed as a potent blend of terror, suspense, and home invasion genres. Shout Studios is bringing Model House to select theatres on April 5th. Written and directed by Derek Pike, Model House follows 5 swimsuit models shooting a lucrative swimwear campaign at Waterfall 100 miles north of Los Angeles. The clients put them in a secluded house for the weekend, which is referred to in the fashion industry as a model house. Over the course of the first night, the models document nearly every move, including their vulnerable location to their millions of social media followers. Before they know it, two intruders break into the house. Held at gunpoint, the girls are forced to post a fake donation link to their social media pages until $1 million is stolen from their followers. Soon realizing that their lives are at risk, the models take matters into their own hands and fight back. Scout Taylor Compton, Chris Zylka, Corey Ann Roberts, Kyra Santoro, Haley Lautenbach, Priscilla Huggins-Ortiz, Natalie Newton-Baum, and Philip Andrew Botello star. Who knows? Could be decent, could be terrible. There was that slasher film we watched on stream a year or so ago. I can't remember what it's called. It might have been called like Cam Girls or something, or Webcam, or I don't know. But the whole thing was, it was like a model house or a cam girl house or whatever the terminology is that a slasher turns up at, and it was actually pretty damn good. Really surprising. Maybe it's like that because I remember watching that and thinking, just a film to watch on stream. Who knows? But it's actually not bad in terms of modern slashers. Not bad at all. Well, that is it for the horror news. That was the news. Oh.
You hang up on me again, I'll cut you like a fish, understand?
Boom, there you go. Job done. So, we are going to talk now about some films that I have watched for the purpose of reviewing. Aren't you lucky? So we've got 4 films up for discussion this evening. First up, we'll go with this one first, actually. It's not a brand new horror film. It actually came out in 2021, but I've only just got around to watching it, so flip it. I'm going to review it. And that is the 2021 found footage, I guess you could call it. There's another terminology that we found when talking about Deadstream. Can't remember what the terminology was used for the subgenre, but yeah, it's potent there. It's called Dashcam. 2021 horror, directed by Rob Savage, who, he did host. So that was the reason that I was intrigued to watch it. He did host. He also did The Boogeyman, which I thought was shit. But he did host, which is a very, very good kind of found footage webcam horror film. So this is he also wrote the film along with Gemma Hurley and Jed Shepard. Stars Anna Hardy, Amir Chadha Patel, and Angela Inahoro. The film follows Hardy as a semi-fictionalized version of herself. Oh. So she is partially really like that then. That's awkward. As a semi-fictionalized version of herself who leaves Los Angeles to visit a friend in London during the COVID-19 pandemic, only to find herself in a series of nightmarish events after agreeing to give a strange elderly woman a ride in her friend's car. It's presented entirely from the perspective of Hardy's iPhone as she live streams her actions for viewers. Filmed produced by Jason Blum through his Blumhouse Productions. So, when this came out, I remember hearing a few things about it. I knew that it's from the director of Host, which I thought was a really, really good, really effective, neat horror film. So I knew it had that going for it. But I'd also heard mixed things, like the general sort of consensus for it seemed to be it's decent or it's crap. There was no real kind of middle ground. And the main prevalent thing the prevailing thing that I heard overall was that an actress, or the main actress in it, was really annoying. And so that kind of tempered my expectations somewhat. But it's a film that I get, because it was 2021 came out, we didn't have that many new films coming out. And I kept trying to keep an eye out for when this was getting released. And I remember distinctly when this was coming out, or when I thought this was coming out to watch at home, it was showing up on Sky, but there's another film released pretty much at the same sort of time, or the same year at least, called Dashcam. And Sky was showing the artwork for this, but the bio or the synopsis for this other Dashcam film. And so I never got around to renting it or purchasing it, because I just thought, there's one that I particularly want to watch. There's another one that, if it's meant to be decent, I will watch it, but I'm not going out my way to spend money on it, outside of what you're already subscribing to. So this dropped onto Sky Cinema recently as one of their new films, considered it's a film from 2021, but I digress. So yeah, Annie Hardy, playing Annie Hardy, is an American musician and conservative conspiracy theorist. Live streams from her car, creating music using comments from the live chat as lyrics. Tired of pandemic restrictions and homelessness in Los Angeles, she flies to London to visit her friend and former bandmate Stretch, a food delivery driver. Stretch's girlfriend Gemma clashes with Annie over politics and COVID-19. Annie accompanies Stretch on a delivery job, antagonising restaurant owners with her anti-mask views. So, even before we get into the COVID stuff with Annie, she comes across really obnoxious and annoying. She really does kind of give you that vibe of the kind of YouTubers or live streamers that you see are really popular, but whenever you see clips of them, you think, why do people enjoy this person? They're really annoying. You don't get what the appeal is. So initially I did turn this off after 10 minutes because I thought, no, I'm not digging this. This is quite annoying, actually. I did return to it, and it does get intriguing once you start getting into the horror. And it's only 76 minutes long. It is quite a lean film. Yeah, as mentioned, she has a falling out with her friend Stretch. She basically just turns up, lets herself into his apartment, into his flat, and then while he's trying to work jobs, she's just trying to get him fired, but like just because she's just really obnoxious, self-absorbed, and with her views and whatnot. She steals his car keys and his phone and decides to take a delivery job for him, just for her live stream, being a knob. But during this, she gets offered a lot of money to transport an elderly lady who has an Ariana Grande tattoo on her stomach. It all gets a bit weird from there because there's bodily fluids, there's some supernatural stuff. And it becomes a little bit of a race to find this woman, but also to survive and to understand what is going on. So from there, we get some pretty good horror moments, actually. We get some pretty good horror moments. There's some pretty good supernatural moments of characters or a character levitating in the background of shots. People live streaming but falling from trees, and lots of disorientating moments, the kind of the good stuff that you get from a good found footage film, where it's not just a case of what was that in the woods. It's trying to do something a little bit more adventurous, a little bit different, kind of like some of the shots from the Exist found footage film we discussed on the last show of Bigfoot. It's trying to do something a bit unique with some of its shots, where it's not just doing rinse and repeat. So I appreciated that. Things do take quite a supernatural turn in this. You don't. I initially was thinking vampirism. I don't think it was vampirism. I think it was something demonic when we get near to the end. But there's some really quite interesting moments in this film. The problem is Annie. Now, whether it's difficult when your focal point, your de facto protagonist or anti-hero, is really irritating. And again, not so much when it comes to views, whatever, ain't nothing but a thing. But it's the difficulty that I had with this film was caring what happens to Annie, because even by the end of it, I just didn't really care. I was almost rooting for the thing that appears near the end of the film. Which makes it quite a difficult film for me to review, really. Let me just, when I say review, I mean kind of score. I'm going to check what I've put in my notes for it. I think for this film, dash cam, I got to give it a 5. From a found footage perspective, it does do some interesting things. It's got some interesting editing choices, good moments of scares, jumpy, effective moments. Also, the way of revealing slowly the story or potentially what's going on with the story without giving too much away or giving you definitive answers is kind of interesting. But that being said, lead performance really just affects the film, really drags it down. She's really annoying. So 5 out of 10 for Dashcam. Unfortunate. The next film I watched, one I actually watched today, one of the 2 new Shudder films from recent weeks, History of Evil. The artwork drew my attention in. I didn't watch a trailer beforehand. That's my fault. That's on me. It's a 2024 film, written and directed by Bo Mirho Seni, starring Paul Wesley, Jackie Cruz, and Zachary Branch. I don't know any of these people. Jackie Cruz is apparently from Orange is the New Black. I feel like I recognize her, but having a quick look at her IMDb. Oh, she's in 3 episodes of Good Girls. Maybe I've seen her there. Not sure. So a family on the run from a corrupt state takes refuge in a safe house with an evil past. So essentially, let's look at the character names. Don't know the character names here. Bloody hell. So essentially, Jackie Cruz's character has escaped from some sort of prison or holding camp. She is wanted because she wrote something that made a lot of people angry. A lot of people agree with it, though, these sort of freedom fighters. You've got this kind of, I guess, juxtaposition of the corrupted state and those trying to fight against the system and the issues therein. But what we have here is essentially a predominantly one location film, which makes me think, is it taking the COVID approach of we just need one location, that's enough? I don't know. I don't know when, if this was filmed and then not released for a few years. I don't know. But essentially, they smuggle the mum out. This the husband with his daughter and an associate, where they stop off at this old farmhouse while they await extraction from this freedom fighter group. There's paranoia. You got these drones that fly around, like little kind of, not like Terminator drones, like commercial drones, scanning the areas, and you have visits from militias relating to this government. But in this house, there seems to be a bit of an evil presence which is infecting the husband of the group. And he has these meetings with this. It's a boring film. There's a mixture of, is it ghosts? Is it something supernatural that's occurring? What is going on with some characters? There's a particular character that's found with a bag wrapped around their head. Was that a ghost? Is it all ghosts? I don't know. It's shot well enough. The music is decent enough. Performances are good enough. The story, though, just does not seem to know what it is doing. I was quite pleased when the film ended because it's a slog. It was a slog. And it left me thinking, well, what was the point of this? What is the story they were looking to tell with this film? Were there particularly scary moments? No. Were there particularly tense moments? To an extent, a couple of moments, but those moments kind of wrapped in going, what's going on? What is that? It was a struggle for me, really. This is going to seem harsh, but I'm giving it 3 out of 10. We're back in that territory of Shudder films. Like I say, shot well, interesting kind of setup of a story, but it just didn't really seem to know how it wanted to go about telling that story. Yeah, 3 out of 10. Kind of shit. Next up, I picked up this film on rental because it was like £2. The artwork was very intriguing. The trailer looked like there was some interesting promise with it. That is the film Lord of Misrule. It's a 2023 film directed by William Brent Bell, written by Tom DeVille, starring Tuppence Middleton, Ralph Ineson, whose people may know as Sid from Final Fantasy 16. And I can't do his voice, it's ridiculously deep. But he was also in The Witch, or the Vivitch. Around the chat, if you were glad it was over, that can't be good. And it was just dull. It was just dull, and there wasn't seemed to be a point to it. But no, Lord of Misrule. The general setup is a desperate search for the young daughter of the town's new minster. So straight off the bat, I will say think Wicker Man to an extent. That's not to give anything away of the ending, just to be clear. More so in terms of person arrives at a small village. People seem normal, but as time progresses, there seems to be this weird kind of undercurrent of maybe a cult in regards to what is occurring currently and what has occurred in the past. Yes, Fran in the chat, Finchy from The Office. That is it. That's Ralph Ineson. But it uses a version of this old position. So, in olden times, the Lord of Misrule was a role, like an officiant's role, given to someone of a lower standing to kind of oversee a party type event. In this village has this Lord of Misrule with a really sort of creepy, almost jester-esque mask, who dispels this demon into the field that tries to cause issues. I don't really understand fully, but don't take that the wrong way. Shot very well. They have this event, this big sort of festival in the town, and as the festival's coming near the end, the daughter, who seems a bit of an oddball, there's a moment where it looks like she's trying to kill a rabbit, so she seems a little bit disassociated with the general populace, but as new girl in town, hasn't really made any friends. Mother's the minister, dad works at home. Anyway, she goes missing at this, I guess you could call it like a harvest event. Lots of weird masks, lots of caricature type things. Goes missing. A similar event had happened 15 years prior. And so we're in a bit of a mystery trying to uncover what has happened currently, where the daughter is she safe? Also, what happened before and what was the outcome of that? It's shot, like I say, shot very well. The music's actually quite good, and the performances are really good. Like Tuppence Middleton, someone I'm not really familiar with, but really good performance. And Ralph Ineson's always brilliant. Finchy. It does feel like it drags a little bit. It's only an hour 44. It's not an especially long film, but it does have enough interesting moments in it. It does take some supernatural twists. The performances, like I say, are good, but vary from good to bewildering. There's a moment with one character who, in one moment, he seems like kind of overtly nice to the point of annoying. Another moment when there's been a bit of an issue with one of the kids, he kind of goes ballistic at the main character, the minister, like violent almost. But I don't think he's violent. I think he might slap her or hit her. I'm not sure. But she doesn't necessarily react as though he has just done something incredibly bad or rude or acted really inappropriately. It's difficult to describe without giving too much away. But yeah, I think I just saw in the trailer. It grabs her by the throat. It's a bit odd in that regard, but there's a few interesting set pieces here. The finale, I think, was actually pretty interesting in that it just didn't really hold back on the mythology that it was setting up for itself. It's definitely one worth a watch. It's one that's completely flew, as far as I'm aware, flew right under the radar. I only saw it because I was looking through the new film section of Prime store and figured I'd give it a go. But I think there is something there. I'm giving it a slightly higher score than I initially had written down because I do think it's worth your time. I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10 for the Lord of Misrule. Like I say, the masks I think were very cool and unique. It is a mystery thriller with this kind of almost Wicker Man-esque folk horror. And I say Wicker Man-esque, that's probably just quite derogatory, but I guess the Wicker Man is kind of your benchmark for modern folk horror. So things are always going to be kind of associated with it. And this very much is. So I'm going to give The Lord of Misrule 6.5 out of 10. And that then brings us to our final film, as mentioned at the top of the show, the exclusive watch, Doctor Jekyll. Doctor Jekyll is a 2023 British Gothic horror film directed by Joe Stevenson, written by Dan Kelly Mulhan, and starring Eddie Izzard as the title character. It is an adaptation of the novella Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Had its world premiere at Fright Fest last year and was released in the United Kingdom on 27th of October. I mean, I don't know where it got released on 27th of October, but as far as I'm aware, it hasn't come out until soon. So it stars, Eddie Izzard, Scott Chambers, we'll talk about shortly, Lindsay Duncan, Robin Cara, Jonathan Hyde, that's quite interesting. Morgan Watkins, Simon Callow, and Tony Jayawardena. There we go. Dr. Nina Jekyll pushed the glass ceiling of the pharmaceutical industry to its limits, rubbing shoulders with the elite, becoming a household name and making herself a fortune. But her success came at a cost, and after a scandal forced her out of the spotlight, she now lives in seclusion with her demons. In need of an assistant, Jekyll hires ex-con Rob straight out of rehab for trying to get back on his feet. It soon becomes clear that there are evil forces at play, and Rob's wits are tested in a game of cat and mouse with the devil in all its forms. That's the general sort of premise online. So, I checked this out. New Hammer Studios release. Now, what I will say off the bat is it's always good to see a new Hammer release. I remember a few years ago, I believe it was the Woman in Black was a big return for Hammer, a big cinematic return for Hammer, the one starring Daniel Radcliffe, and that was pretty good. That was pretty good. The sequel, not so much. I didn't really think the sequel was anything to write home about. To be honest. Brand name Resurrection. Let's have a quick look at their brand name Resurrection. So they'd done the remake of Let the Right One In called Let Me In, which Let Me In I thought was fine, but Let the Right One In was the proper version. Beyond the Rave, not seen that. The Resident, I don't know if I've seen that. Wakewood, that was decent. Woman in Black, The Quiet Ones I thought was disappointing. And then The Woman in Black, Angel of Death was kind of not that good. And then also The Lodge, which I haven't seen. I think we might have discussed that actually on the last week's show. Hey, Eddie the Beast is here. How's it going, Eddie? Hope you're doing well. So I was quite keen to watch a new Hammer film just to kind of see what they are like these days. I mean, it's a distribution. It's not been produced by Hammer, but it's distributed by Hammer Studios. I remember hearing bits and bobs about this in terms of a new take on the Jekyll story, the Doctor Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or in this case, Dr. Nina Jekyll, Rachel Hyde, played by Eddie Izzard. I wasn't really too sure what to expect. Now, what I will say with this is there is, for the most part, initially quite a light-hearted, bordering almost on comedic kind of tone early on. Not really so much comedic, but Scott Chambers, who plays Rob, has this light-hearted kind of charm, like whimsy to him. He's very likable, playing an ex-con here. Very, very likable. Eddie Izzard as Nina Jekyll does very well with bringing that mystique and mysteriousness to the role, where you know that there's going to be something going on, but you're just not entirely sure what just yet. And Sandra Poole, the initial kind of assistant, played by Lindsay Duncan, is that really kind of uptight, aggressive, overtly precious assistant type role. Very good in that. We see the people surrounding Rob as they seem to be either well-wishing for him or trying to drag him back into his dark past, whatever that was. But he is trying to get his life on track. He has a daughter that he hasn't met or hasn't seen since he's been inside or been in rehab or prison, whatever. He's trying to work and get back on his feet and do the best for that. But something is a bit odd with Nina Jekyll. And we don't really see that until much later in the film, which I think isn't too much of a spoiler, but we won't obviously go into full spoiler territory. There's some moments of violence in terms of like one of the characters getting jumped and attacked, which are quite visceral. I mean, not like gory or anything, but just the British more often than not seem to be able to nail that gritty realism when it comes to a fight or an attack, more so than you usually see in American productions. Think something like the finale to This Is England? Where it's just a really just unnervingly realistic type attack moment with Combo and Milky. just an awkward watch. There's a little bit of a moment of that with an attack. Not so much where you think anything nefarious is occurring, but just there's this sense of realism there. Oh, don't worry, Eddie. Eddie in the chat says it's going great. Reason I'm late is because it's my grandmother's birthday. Happy birthday, to your grandmother. And you only just got back. No worries, dude. We're going to be doing a watch party soon, so we're going to be hanging out for a bit longer while we sort of finish up the show. In terms of, like I say, in terms of horror, you get the moments of intrigue around the 2/3 mark. It only really goes horror in the final 10 minutes, the 10 minutes or so. And when it does, it's quite interesting in its approach. It's quite interesting in terms of its reveal of where the story is going and what is really being said there. The effects are a little bit shonky, but they're all done practically, like practical effects, which I appreciate. And I'd rather have slightly shonky practical effects than overtly CGI mess. That's just my kind of preference. So I appreciate that. I enjoyed that. Performances, like we say, good. It doesn't seem like it was a huge budget, but you don't necessarily need that when you've got good performances. It is kind of a one location film. You know, we talked disparagingly about A History of Evil in that way, so we should apply that as well with Doctor Jekyll. We're essentially spending about 90% of the time at this manor house. But there's enough variety there in terms of the various rooms and in terms of the intrigue of what's going on in the plot that kind of separate it from A History of Evil. I'm going to give it a similar score to Lord of Misrule. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I don't think it hits a 7 out of 10 for me. The story's intriguing enough, or the new adaptation of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde or Mrs. Hyde story is intriguing enough, but it's not that it's nothing new, because it is doing a new approach to it, but is it enough to kind of take that story into a new direction? No, I don't think so. I definitely think it is worth your time to check it out, give it a watch, see what you think, but I wouldn't say I saw anything watching this that blew my beans off. For want of a better term. So 6.5 out of 10 is ultimately where it ends up on today's review. So that is it. There's no, like I say, no featured presentation this evening. Nothing loco in that regard. But thank you once again for watching another edition of the Ministry of Horror. Do stick around. We are going to be doing a watch party. We're going to be chatting horror and non-horror related stuff. You know, we always chat a bit of wrestling on the watch parties. Do stick around. Check it out. If you haven't already, give the show a follow, or if you want to do a subscribe on Twitch, twitch.tv/Tezzius, TEZZIUS. Much appreciated. If you're watching on YouTube, where I will hopefully remember to put this on YouTube, give the channel a follow and all that good stuff. If you're listening on audio platforms, follow, give us a review, whatever you feel is appropriate. It all helps. Algorithms or whatever. Don't know enough about it. But that's it for the show. Stick around. We'll watch some films and chat.